Right, Chair, according to my screen, we are live on YouTube now. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, members, officers, and members of the public and press who may be joining us on YouTube. Can I have apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillors McGee, Tom Beattie, Willie Latter and Paul Beattie. And we have Councillors Colquhoun, Beebe and DL substituting.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Have any members got any declarations of interest that they have in the business to be discussed this evening?
Councillor Keane's hands up, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Keane?
Yeah, obviously on the Corby Town Council, quite a lot of the members of this committee are on to be added onto the Town Council. Would that be a declaration of interest that we'd all have to make that we could participate in?
No, Chair. If it's agreed, it's a decision of the Council to appoint you as official representative, so you don't need to declare that as a personal and prejudicial interest.
Then I have no declaration to make.
Thank you. No other declarations. Minutes of the previous meetings on the 12th of January and the 26th of January. Can I see a mover and seconder for these minutes? See Councillor Sims and Councillor Beebe. Thank you. Moving on to the first.
Sorry, Chair. All those in favour?
Oh, thank you, Paul.
That's passed, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to the first item on the agenda, which is the Corby Town Council member appointments. I see Paul Galt, please, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. As discussed at full council, we are proposing to appoint what you would call, I suppose, shadow members to the Corby Town Council, which we think is a reasonable precautionary measure in case there are any decisions that are so urgent that need to be made between the 1st of April and the elections in May, or indeed if those elections are postponed, although it's looking more and more unlikely as each week goes by they're going to be postponed. If they were, though, to be postponed until later in the year, we would need to certainly call a meeting of the Town Council in that period. So it's very much a precautionary measure. We consulted the group leaders for nominations, and these are the nominations, and it's really just for this committee to, if you like, ratify those, and then the proper officer, which is Jonathan Waterworth, can sign those off.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions?
Oh, sorry, Chair. I should raise a point which Councillor Watt did raise with me before the meeting, that his name is incorrectly spelt in the report. I've done pretty good for 6 years at getting it right, but I stumbled at the last hurdle. So just to point that out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. David Sims?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to just ask a question. I'm obviously I do fully support this report, but I just wanted a clarification, if I may. I understand this is just a precautional thing to put forward, but it's a shadow committee council. But going forward, and on this shadow council, and going forward after the elections, is it right that the person who actually represents the town council has to live in the town and not in a village, has to be within the borough or own a property or work? Is that still the regulation, or is it different with town councils?
No, the regulations are broadly the same. They have to live there, it has to be their main place of work, they have to own property or land in the area. I think there is, you've caught me on the hop here slightly, Councillor, but I think there is also a qualification if you live something like 2 miles or something within the boundary or from the boundary of the local authority. But those qualifications will all be on the Electoral Commission's website if you wanted to look. Apologies, I don't have them. I wouldn't want to quote them chapter and verse off the top of my head.
No problem. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Can I see a mover then for the recommendation, which is to approve the nominations for the appointment to the Town Council from the 1st of April 2021 by the proper officer? See
Chair,
Councillor Isles.
Councillor Isles and Councillor Colquhoun.
Thank you. All those in favour? Raise your hands.
It's passed unanimously, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to the second report, which is the budget monitoring report, Q3, General Fund Housing Review account, housing revenue account, and the capital programme. Can I see Adrian Sibley to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. I usually start off this report by saying it's either a positive report or this is the report that you know and love, that I'm bringing to you on a regular basis. But tonight I'm slightly different, in a much more somber mood in my introduction, because this is the last time I'll be presenting this report to you that you all know and love. It's also not quite as positive as it usually is, but that's due to circumstances beyond our control. So in terms of the general fund, what you'll see, just excuse me, what you'll see from the report is that we've got £2.2 million worth of net pressures. Now, these are almost entirely COVID related due to things like the closure of the leisure complexes, car parking income being down, etc. But the good news is they've been offset by £1.4 million worth of 4 government tranches of funding, plus a £574,000 grant for lost fees and charges, all of which brings us back to a deficit position of only £210,000. Now, I would say at this point, I can't fault the government in what they've done and making good their promises for COVID for local government. So we sat with a £2.2 million deficit, and they said they would reimburse councils for their losses, and they have pretty much done that. And I do expect another further tranche to come through at some point, but I can't include it yet because I don't know for definite that it's coming through. So I can't I can't fault the government in this respect. They may have taken away our funding over the years, but they've certainly come good on the COVID side of things. In terms of the housing revenue account, there's a pressure of £620,000. That's almost entirely lost income, provision for lost income, which you can put down to COVID as well. But that's been offset by generally by salary savings, which bring the loss down to about £150,000. In terms of capital, I'm not reporting any significant variances at this on any completed schemes, but I am expecting there to be significant underspends in both the general fund and the HRA capital programme. In terms of the HRA, there's £9 million so far yet to be spent. Now, that isn't an issue in itself, because if that's not spent, that'll go straight into HRA reserves. What's more problematic potentially is the general fund underspends. So potentially there's a £3 million underspend on this year's capital programme and a further £1 million on the schemes that were approved, excluding the cemetery, the schemes that have been additionally approved some time ago, a year or two ago, which have been carried forward. The inference for that is that if I can't guarantee that they'll be carried forward. If they've not been committed, it's in the hands of the new authority. So it's not like we have control over that going forward. I would stress I have expressed this concern to officers time and time again over the last 6 months to 12 months and beyond that. If they don't get spent, you're in the lap of the gods, and I don't know what the answer is on that. So that's my only concern at this stage. That's it, Chair. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Adrian. Alison.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Adrian. Adrian, on the housing revenue account, there's a vacant post in the communal flats position, and we were a little bit concerned that having that's quite an important post really in keeping the flats in good state of repair. And just wondered, is there any plans really afoot to recruit to that position?
I can't tell you that off the top of my head, Councillor, but I will make a note and ask the head of service and come back to you in an email tomorrow if that's okay.
Thank you.
Just following on from Alison's question, I think it's quite important that, you know, through hygiene, that these flats are kept clean and tidy. We don't want any other outbreaks of infection. Any other questions? No? Can I see a seconder then for the recommendations?
Sorry,
Councillor
Chair.
Isles?
Councillor Isles.
Yes, Paul, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Isles was proposing, was he?
Proposing, yes, sorry, I need a seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Cahoon. All in favour? Any against? No abstentions. Thank you. And the exempt item on the report, the committee is recommended to consider the following reports in private on the grounds that they contain it's defined in the Local Government Act 1972, and consequently that it makes the following resolution: that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following reports on the grounds that they contain exempt information as defined in the Local Government Act 1972